Hey, what's happening, guys? You guys are quizzing today. We are going to go live on the back side of this. The front side, there's not too much on the quiz that's on this. It's important, but I'm going to record this for you, and then you can watch it after the quiz anytime before Monday. So with functions, we have looked at mostly graphs of them, a little bit with equations. That's what kind of this front part says. And there's really three ways that we can represent a function: with a graph, with an equation, and then with a table like this. This is typically one of the things that my students enjoy the most, is evaluating from a table, just because it's pretty easy to read and pretty straightforward. So this is x values, and then we're representing two functions, f and g. And they're just asking us to evaluate. So g of -3, find that -3 here on our x. G of -3 is equal to 12. Pretty good. For b, f plus g of 2. As we talked about on Wednesday, that just means f of 2 plus g of 2. So just find those from above. 2, f of 2 would be 7. G of 2 looks like it's 22. So we got 7 plus 22. Final answer is 29. C, the f times g of -2, same idea. That would just be f of -2 times g of -2. Find those from above. F of -2 is 9. G of -2 is 6. So -9, I should say, times 6. So we got -54. And then finally, f of g of 1. I'm going to rewrite that so it makes more sense to me. Find g of 1 first. So g of 1 is going to be 12. Is that right? Oh, shoot, Mr. Ernst. This is saying g of f of 1. Careful. So f of 1 first, I should say, is 3. So that means that we need to really find g of 3. And g of 3 is equal to 36. Okay, so you're just pulling from the tables, and we can evaluate. So I think pretty straightforward. Okay, so next thing is just reminders on domain and range. Domain, as we've talked about, x's, inputs, range, y's, and outputs. We've found domain from a table so far. We've talked about the fact that you can't divide by 0 or square root of negative, so we found domain restrictions. Now we're going to be looking at graphs. So when you're looking at domain from a graph, look left and right, because you're talking about x's. Okay, with y's, the range, you're going to look up and down. So two graphs here. They ask us to identify the domain and the range of the following graphs. Okay, this is a quadratic that's going to be shifted to the right. There's an endpoint or a vertex right there at 0. So if we're looking at domain, we're looking left and right. A lot of the time we go, hey, all real numbers. But there's no graph over here on the left. It actually starts at 0. So our domain is x is anything from 0 and to the right. X is greater than or equal to 0. Okay. Now, we know those arrows mean it goes on forever. They also mean it's going to go up. Come on, pen, right. Up and down forever. So your range is all real numbers. Okay. Second one for B. B, this does not have any arrows on the end. So our domain and our range are both going to be finite. They're both going to be restricted here. Domain, we're going to start all the way to the left. It looks like it starts at -5 and runs all the way over to 1. So our domain, x is greater than or equal to -5, less than or equal to 1. And then it skips a little bit and it picks back up at 2. So x is greater than 2 and less than, it stops again at 5. Now we need an equal to at 5, but we don't here at 2 because of that open circle. It doesn't include 2. So we have two different, small intervals on our x's. X is greater than or equal to -5 and less than or equal to 1, or from 2 up until 5, including 5 and not 2. Now with our range, we're going to go up and down. We're going to start with our smallest y value, which would be -2. So y has to be greater than or equal to -2. And now you might say, and less than 1. But the thing about it is, it does go up to 1 here, but it also overlaps. So in our range, we are going to have any value from -2 all the way up until, we can have all these values in here because they're over there, all the way up until, it looks like 4. So your range, y must be greater than or equal to -2 and less than or equal to 4. Okay, we're going to continue. That's going to be one of our bigger topics. It's not on your quiz that you're about to take, nor is any of this front page. Or I guess at this point when you're watching this, you've already taken it. But it's going to be a focal point of the first semester here in pre-calc. Domain and range will be especially pulling them from graphs. Okay, so now this is all in just regular old set notation with the greater than and less than sign. Some of you have probably seen interval notation. I'm not sure. You're going to like it. It's easier than set notation like that. And I'm going to show you how to write all those in interval notation, and then you're going to have the option of using either of them. When you're talking about interval notation, there's a couple things first. It's always going to be two numbers like this. Now, they'll either be parentheses or brackets. Parentheses are when you're talking about just greater than or less than, and brackets are when you're talking about greater than or less than, or greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So basically you're talking about if it's a bracket, it includes the number. If it's a parentheses, it does not include that number. Okay. Second part of this is the smaller number always goes first and the larger number always goes second. Okay, that's it. Now, to get the hang of it, you just need to practice here. So let's try with a couple of them. Let's say we want to write out x is greater than 5, or we want to write out y is less than 3, greater than 1. Okay, so this one in interval notation, pretty straightforward. Your smaller number, which is included, is 1. Your larger number, which is not included, is 3. And so this insinuates any number from 1, including 1, until 3, not including 3. These two mean the same thing. Okay. Now you might be going, well, what happens if you only have one number? Well, x is greater than 5. So 5 is the smaller number. Okay. So that's going to go on the left. It is not including it. And when you don't have a larger number, we're just going to write infinity. And infinity will always come with a parentheses because we cannot contain infinity. Okay, one more here. What happens if you don't have a smallest number? What if we say that d is less than or equal to -2? Well, the largest possible number is -2, and it's included. We do not have a smallest number because this can be anything less than -2. In that case, we use negative infinity. So these two mean the same thing, these two mean the same thing, and those two mean the same thing. I think you're going to eventually probably like this a lot. So let's convert all these top ones into interval notation. your domain here, x is greater than or equal to 0 would just be bracket 0, comma, infinity. All real numbers written in interval notation, or in interval notation, means anything from negative infinity to positive infinity. The range over here, -2, comma 4, both with brackets because they're both included. And then for this one, if we want to write this guy in interval notation, we go -5 included, comma 1 included. Anytime you have multiple, you use a U, and that stands for union. It just means both of them. So -5, comma 1, both included with brackets, union 2, comma 5 with a bracket. Okay. So that's that. Again, none of this was on your quiz. We'll work with both domain and interval notation, domain and range, I should say, and interval notation quite a bit next week. But I'm going to take you through the backside of this guy live in class today. Hope you did well on the quiz. Hope you have a good weekend. Adios.